Hello and welcome to the Porcelain Dawn channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson. Hello! And as I said, today's review is book 3 in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson. This is the spoiler-free review, so if you haven't read the book and are curious about it, tune in. Or if you have read about the book and wish to know what I think of it spoiler-free, please feel free to tune in. Otherwise, there will be a spoiler review, which I think will be quite long, because this is quite a long book and there's a lot going on, coming out in the next couple of days. So yes, here we go. I'm going to keep this review relatively short. It's the best book ever. Go and read it. Okay, bye. Okay, so obviously I'm just kidding. It is a very good book, though. So, like I said, this is spoiler free, so I'm just going to be talking about some of the themes and some of the events, loosely, a sort of overview, and my overall impressions of the book in how it fits as a book on its own and how it fits as a book in this series. So, firstly, this book follows the pattern set in the second book in that it takes place somewhere different. It goes back to where the first book was set. Now, I don't mean to confuse you. If you've read the books already, you're probably used to being confused and you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, the first book takes place here with these characters. The second book takes place somewhere else, and then the third book goes back to the original set of characters, more or less. It's great because it's characters we've grown to love in the first book, and they're treated better here in the sense that the writing is better and the development is better. There's a bunch of new characters too that are really well handled. Like in all of his other books, or the other books that I've read that I mentioned before, there's several quite rich and deep plot lines, all of which are very interesting and all of which are very well handled, and the characters are done very well. And in terms of the writing, I feel like Steven Erikson has stepped up from the second book because there's a certain economy of writing, not in the sense that it's short or threadbare, because it's not. I think this book is like 1,000 pages or more or less 1,000 pages, and there's some parts that are very, very prose rich and very, very dense and deep with explanations and descriptions and things like that. But he fits a lot more into this than in his previous books, I feel like. And he does that with certain parts that are economically written. Like there's one part where you have a punitive army of 3 people. And these people almost say nothing, and it's spoken about a little bit from others, but the fact that they're a punitive army of 3 people tells you so much. Tells you so much about the culture, about the people. It tells you so much about their capacity, and it tells you about the designs. So yeah, I thought that was really, and there's several examples of that throughout this book where he gives you a lot with a little, and then on the other hand, there's times where he gives you a lot with a lot. You know, he mixes it up quite well. This book is a lot darker than the other 2 books, I would say. The second book had some really hard-hitting emotional moments that were quite sad, very sad, but it didn't have such as much disturbing aspects. Like there's one part where there's a prolonged period of torture, and there's another part where, I mean, this pre-mortem copulation. There's lots of things that are very, very dark and very quite heavy thematically. I don't think this is definitely not for children, not just because of the themes and the topics, but also because it's very, I mean, you could be a genius child, but you'd have to be a genius child to read a book like this just because it's so dense and by a child I mean less than 10, but more than 10, I still think there's quite a few disturbing things in here that are probably not the best for younger children, young adults below a certain age. But um, even as an adult, they didn't put me off or anything like that, but they were like, wow, he's no holds barred here. This man, no holds barred. They do add to the book. They're not in any way a detriment, but they add to the book. But they are dark and heavy. Yeah, like I said, his prose is excellent. The story itself is excellent. I mean, the way it's paced, the way you have the overarching theme, and then the little stories that sort of zig and zag in and out, more or less. A particular highlight for me was a lady called Envy with um, some of her friends. That whole sort of buddy cop journey, not buddy cop, sort of road trip friend thing to the nth degree was really, really entertaining. And then they all converge in a certain place at the end, more or less all of the threads. And as I said in the second book, but it's even more here, all of the threads are so engrossing, so entertaining, so engaging, and the characters, there's so many well-written characters. We get introduced to so many, we get added so many. It's just incredible the way his vision for what when I say he, I mean Steven Erikson, his vision for what he wants to show us, his vision for how he sees his world and how he sees his characters, because having this vision, such a deep vision of what you want and what you have in your mind, is already such a talent. Have such a vivid and rich imagination. But then to be able to fully transmit it to us, the reader, in sort of a facsimilative way, where you feel like you're reading and seeing exactly what he wants you to read and see, and his characters and the world are displayed exactly as they are in his head. And that's why it's so long, and that's why it's so rich, because it's so well done. You're transported to this world that does feel real. All of these characters, minor characters, larger characters, they all feel so fleshed out that it's really just so easy to lose yourself and so pleasant to lose yourself. This book has comedic moments. It has really, really sad moments too. There's a part in this book, no spoilers, where something happens and you're sad and you're angry and you're vengeful and you really want somebody to come along and avenge what happened instantly, even though it wouldn't be better for the story, but you feel so insulted by the action that happens, and it's just so potently handled. And then there's another part where another person has sort of a Jesus-like moment. I'll be going into that in the spoiler review, and it's so multifaceted, the way he writes and the way he tells the story. It's not that it's non-linear, but it's non-linear in this way that life is non-linear. It's all these little like this to get to the destination. It's just so well done, and so, like, I've been reading fantasy for 30 years, and I love deep fantasy in terms of depth of world building and things like that. And for my likes, my tastes, this may be the best fantasy book ever. Now, I'll have to go think about it a bit more and come to a more or less definitive conclusion in my spoiler review, but from where I am at the moment, this may be the best fantasy book I've ever read. That being said, I am very, very aware that this is entirely based on my tastes. I mean, lots of people can read it and see it for the achievement it is, but I imagine there's a lot of people that can't get into it. So it's not universally the best book best fantasy book ever. I would never say that. You know, like some people would say probably Lord of the Rings and things like that. The Hobbit, for example, is just so accessible and so self-contained that I think it has a claim to be the best fantasy book ever, one of the most complete books of all time. But this, for my tastes and what I look for and what I didn't know I was looking for, honestly. If you know, I could would easily be able to tell you beforehand what I like, but to what degree, etc., it's hard to explain until you're confronted with it. And but now that I've read this, um, I've never come across a book that's more perfectly suited to what I'm looking for in a fantasy book. It is perfection for me. There wasn't a missed note. There wasn't a misstep. There wasn't a anything. It was masterful from start to finish. It was just incredible. And yes, that seems like I'm going crazy, but like I said, that's just for me. I can see where other people would find flaws. I can see where other people would think, oh, this is too long, or this is too dense, or this is too slow, or this is too violent, or this is too unrealistic because the power scales are off the chart, or where people just wouldn't be able to vibe with it. And I wouldn't say they're wrong. You know, I wouldn't say this is for everyone, but if it is for you, if you do like this book, you love this book. I'm sure. I'm sure there's not so many people that will read this book and think, yeah, it was fine. You know, you either didn't get this far probably with Malazan because it's just too much, or you absolutely adored this book. I can't see you enjoying it and not loving it, if that makes sense. So that's my review. Loved it. Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm going to talk about how, because this is really interesting, how it fits into the series and how it fits as a book. As I've shown how it fits as a book, love it. Incredible. You could almost read it by itself, I think, just because the story, the characters are so well fleshed out, and I don't think anything is recumbent on knowing what happened already, or nothing very important. I do believe you could probably read it as a standalone book, and it would be great. Although having the foreknowledge of what happened so far in the series just makes it even richer and even better. But in terms of progressing the story of the series, it does seem like a detour, and that's not necessarily a bad. Like, I love this detour. You know, I'm not complaining that it's a detour, but it doesn't seem related in. It doesn't seem related to the first book or the second book, except for the fact that the Malazan Empire has enemies everywhere. That's an overall theme from these books, but in terms of the linear story between these books, sort of essentially reading these, engaging where it's going. Because I've finished book 3 in a 10-book series. Any other 10-book series, by book 3, you've seen the big bad guy. And we've seen the big bad guy in this, but it's not clear in any way. Like, he's not really. It's really unclear what's happening with that end and what's going to happen in the next 7 books between here and there. But I don't know. It seems like he's put in a lot of time into these different things, which I'm not saying it's a mistake. It's just it piqued my curiosity. Where are we going to go for these next 7 books? Because I do not in any way, even book 4, I can't. We just finished book 3. The very next line from book 4, I have no idea where it's going to be, or who it's going to be, or what it's going to be. No idea whatsoever. And I'm so open to it. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm really looking forward to reading it. But I have no clue where it's going. And it's rare that that's the case, and it's rare that I'm so okay with it. Great book. Check it out. And also, as I said, soon I'm going to be sending out my review, a spoiler-filled review, which is going to be long because this work so deep and so rich deserves to have spotlight shone on the bits that I really thought were special or thought provoking. Anyway, that's enough for now. If you did like this book or you're thinking of reading this book, do read it. Let me know down below. And until then, until I send out the next one, thank you so much for stopping by. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.